All right, well, I've been telling you for a long time the taxes are going up, but enough about me. Let's talk about my proof. President Obama telling other news outlets who are not Fox, and they would include Nickelodeon, that if the U.S. is growing at a robust rate, then we can pay for the government that we need without having to raise taxes. He told Dora the Explorer that, and she just said, what? Anyway, of course, he didn't rule out tax hikes to pay for his health care plan, nor did Dora follow up. Still, it has Club for Growth President Chris Chocola doubly worried, not about the Dora thing, but about the tax thing. Chris, where's this all headed?
Well, Neil, I think it's kind of like saying if I grew to 7 feet, I could play in the NBA. You know, I guess a growth spurt is possible, but not likely. We're going to have negative GDP growth this year. The consensus economic view is about 1.8% next year. The CBO, or the Congressional Budget Office, says maybe it's going to be 3.5%. But the fact is, even if we get back to historical rates of growth, we can't grow our way out of this problem. It's $60 trillion of unfunded liabilities, almost a $2 trillion annual deficit, and the president wants to add $1.5 trillion in added health care costs through a government-run program. It doesn't add up no matter how fast we grow.
All right, so even allowing for rapid growth, and I think some White House estimates the out years start putting it at 5+% and all that, it just doesn't create the revenue. So that's out. So you say the next thing, you aggressively cut spending, not likely to happen, or aggressively raise taxes. Where and who gets hit?
Well, you know, I think with this president, it's probably more important to listen to what he doesn't say than what he does say. It's kind of like Sherlock Holmes in the case of the dog that didn't bark. You know, what he's not telling the American people is
he's already appear on Fox.
That's continue. That's right. You know, what he's not telling the American people is he's already proposed tax hikes on the middle class. He's already said, why don't we eliminate the tax deductibility for employer-provided health care? That hit 165 million taxpayers. 70% of the middle class would see their taxes go up by about $2,200. He's already increased excise taxes on tobacco. He's proposing it on things like beer and wine.
Well, that's not getting much buzz, though, Chris. I mean, you're right about all of the above.
Right.
Let me ask you this, though. When I talk to the White House about this, some of them do talk to me. Like, I talked to the White House chef today, and he did go on the record and tell me that their argument is, I'm kidding, just because I want to say, what do the White House chefs say? Their argument has been, look, as difficult and as unpopular as raising taxes are, they will be dwarfed and more than compensated for by the boon you get from all this spending, and that people will almost forget the fact that, you know, taxes are going up. What do you make of that?
Well, the problem is you're not creating value. You're just moving money around. You're taking it from one person, you're giving it to another. And, you know, the question I always ask is give me an example in history of the world where Keynesian-style spending has actually worked, where it's got us out of a recession, created prosperity.
They always go back to the New Deal.
Well, they go back. Well, the New Deal didn't work.
Right.
I think there's a lot of evidence that World War II did. The only answer I've ever gotten is, well, we didn't spend enough. And I'm afraid we're going to test that theory. And so that's really a frightening thought, that we haven't spent enough in history to see economic growth through Keynesian-style spending.
All right. Top tax rate, which will be hovering around 40% soon. Where do you see it going?
Well, I think if you do the math, you've got to raise taxes overall about 60%. 50% of Americans already don't pay taxes. So that's a big burden on those that create wealth, those that create jobs and create economic growth. So we're certainly not going to see the economic growth that the president is talking about if we put an extra burden of that magnitude on those that actually grow the economy.
I know that, but if it's 40% or close to it, you see it going to 50, 55, 60?
Oh, well, you know, you got to do the math. It depends on how they distribute it. And so certainly on the higher income taxpayers, it'll be above 50, I would expect.
In very short order.